my God, she's so cute.
CBS is here.
Why?
Hello. We're voting on charges on a teacher.
Oh.
Maybe we could talk about the Dobbs Allen.
Oh, stop it.
Pretty sure you should not just say that.
Hey. If you want to, we want you to go. Like, and no, I'm not making that amendment because it'll blow their heads up. I don't want to blow someone's head up. Well, okay. So I put this shirt on, and Aaron Mike goes, "Oh my God, you're matching your purse to your shirt." I said, "I am not." He goes, "Oh my God, it matches." I'm like, "That's like a grandma match. I can't do that." But I really do like this blouse. Ann O'Brien, could you do me a favor? Make my thing work. I hate this. Can't it just be connected? Oh, act like it just...
Where's your paper? Put it back. What's this? Can I look?
Yes. Why not?
Is this piece of paper? How come?
I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Governing Board. Let the record show all members are present. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a point of privilege from Ms. Orwell.
I'd just like to have a moment of silence for remembering 9/11, and also when we do sit down, if those that are first responders, veterans, or active military, please stand up so we can thank you. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda with the following changes: to remove items 4F and 4L from the consent agenda for separate consideration, and to move item 5B to just after number 3.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I apologize. I'm still catching up. 5B to be moved where?
5B to be moved after item number 3.
After the reports.
After 3C.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, we have awards and achievements. Monica, are we up here or down there?
Evening, President Fisher, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Finch, and special guests. Tonight, we recognize excellence in academics. Easy merit results for DVUSD students included 610 assessments with the highest possible scale score, essentially a perfect score. That's 139 more possible highest scale score than Deer Valley students achieved the previous year, a nearly 30% increase. In addition, Deer Valley has 32 students who scored with the highest possible scale score on 2 assessments, either English, Language Arts, and Math assessments, or the ELA and Ames Science assessments. To demonstrate how tiny and amazing this group is, these 32 students represent the top 0.1% of Deer Valley students. Over the next 2 governing board meetings, we will honor these students. Tonight, we recognize 18 students from 5 DVUSD schools. The principal from their schools, Canyon Springs, Desert Sage, Diamond Canyon, Highland Lakes, and Las Brisas, will make the introductions. When the principals have introduced their students, they will join the students for a photo. The students will then wait off to the side until all have been introduced so we can take a group photo. First up, from Canyon Springs, Principal Tricia Graham.
Governing Board and Superintendent Finch. We are proud to recognize the following Canyon Springs students who received the highest possible scale scores on both the English Language Arts and Math Arizona Merit assessments. 5th grade student Lillian Kay. And 6th grade student Aiden Thatcher.
From Desert Sage, Principal Christy Gill.
President Fisher and members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Finch, tonight we honor the following Desert Sage student who received the highest possible scale score on both the English Language Arts and Math AZ Merit assessments. And that student is 5th grade student Nisha Smith.
Next up, Diamond Canyon Principal Tara LeCount.
President Fisher, members of the Governing Board, and Superintendent Finch. Congratulations to the following Diamond Canyon students who received the highest possible scale score on both the English Language Arts and Math AZ Merit assessments. 8th grader McKenna Carlson, and 5th grade student Ryan Conroy.
Ryan, you guys can wait over here. Here now from Highland Lakes, Principal Mark Anderson.
Good evening. President Fisher, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Finch. We are proud to recognize the following Highland Lake students who received the highest possible scale scores on the English Language Arts and Math AZ Merit assessments. And we have quite a crowd here. So we're going to start with 6th grade student Claire Bixby. Eighth grade student Aiden Bowers. Fifth grade student Jonah Kane. Sixth grade student Manasa Chundi. Sixth grade student Susan Martin. Eighth grade student Catherine Mills. Eighth grade student Salil Naik. Former Highland Lake student and current Boulder Creek freshman Weiss O'Connor. Eighth grade student Abigail Parcell. Fifth grade student Eric Potts. And our final student who received the highest possible scale scores on the English Language Arts AZ Merit and AIMS Science Assessment, former Highland Lake student and current Mountain Ridge freshman, Grace Zhu.
our final school being recognized tonight, Las Brisas and Principal John Melvin.
President Fisher, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Finch, and honored guests. Tonight we honor the following Las Brisas students who received the highest possible scale score on both the English Language Arts and the Mathematics AZ Merit Assessment. Would you please congratulate with me 6th grade student, Mr. Tyler Olson. And 5th grade student, Mr. John Simcoe.
Please help me congratulate the top 10th of 1% of our students. Congratulations.
For my short.
Oh, that's no big deal. I'm taking up like, I
Can we
need
have
a
one more
table.
round of applause for all of our students? And we'll give you all, it's a good moment if you want to escape.
How about move up to the front row?
Huh?
It's a good time to move up to the front row.
That's right. Now there's front row seats. Feel free to join us. Too late. Good try.
Right, quick.
All right. Go ahead and move on to governing board reports. Ms. Tweedy.
I know we have a lot to discuss, so I don't really have a report tonight. Thank you.
Miss O'Brien.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. I just realized it's been 3 weeks since we've all seen each other, so it's been a fun-filled time. Have been able to attend a few football games as well as the Park Meadows AZ Merit Awards ceremony, which was awesome. Stetson Hills got to have a ceremony for a young man who saved a fellow student's life, performing CPR on the friend and fellow student. That was what an incredible young man and experience that was. He had no idea he was receiving that honor from the Phoenix Fire Department. In addition, I was able to attend the Arizona School Boards Association pre-law conference and law conference with fellow board members, Mrs. Fisher and Mrs. Ordway, as well as the superintendent and several district administrators. There was much covered at the law conference, from special education to funding, the new overtime law, and a whole lot in between there. Sometimes your brain wants to explode after 3 days of that much information, but I did enjoy getting to network with our other school districts and board members as well as administrators. And I'm so excited to have been able to honor our award winners this evening. So thank you.
Miss Frank.
Just very briefly, I enjoyed going to the Arizona SciTech kickoff conference, so kind of working, and then also had the opportunity to meet so many of the chief science officers from our district. Quite a few of our schools were represented, so that was really exciting. And then also was able to attend Sierra Verde's business partner breakfast. They had an outstanding keynote speaker, and it was really great to see how Sierra Verde is building those partnerships with the community. So, and that's it for my report.
I will ditto most of what Miss O'Brien said. I'll add a couple of football games in, some volleyball games. Haven't made it to badminton, but I will. The amount of energy that our staff puts into making it possible for all of our students to pursue excellence is just amazing. And when we show this top 10th of our 10% of students, I think I got that right. When you look across the state or across the country, you hear 48. What we're talking about Arizona, 48 is in funding. It's certainly not in accomplishment. So kudos to Arizona school districts, but to Deer Valley for expending their resources, whether it be the financial or human resources, to where they belong. And I look forward to continuing improving that. I also have presents from my field trip to the graphic arts department, pens, and notepads, because I know you all need notepads. They're made from recycled paper, so I, use them. But I went over there because we're getting a draft for our big board ethics poster, and it was nice to be able to go over there and see another member of a family. We've got a whole family that works cafeteria. We have a great family. I mean, just a great family, so keep up the great work.
Yeah, it is a little bit amazing to see that 3 weeks go by, and they go by really fast. The law conference was excellent. I think one of the best things to find when you go to these law conferences, you get the little parts of things that you're not doing right, but it's refreshing to find that when we look, there is so much more that we are doing right. We catch tidbits, we catch little extra hints, but it's amazing what a great job we realize that our staff, they already do. They do it by nature, not by law, not by force. And it just so happens they're compliant because they have the hearts for our kids and they have the hearts for what we do. So that, I've got to say, is just really refreshing. The football games have been awesome. I did miss the first Deer Valley football game and quickly was scolded. I thought I was doing a nice thing for my son, taking him to the Cardinals, or not the Cardinals, what did I take him to? Diamondbacks. Yeah, I took him to the Diamondbacks again. I'm a great mom, right? He's gonna go to this, and I heard all night, I'm missing the game. I'm not at my school, and so we will no longer make that mistake. Our high schools are much better. And I also wanted just a little extra thanks to Dr. Finch. as he has joined the district. I really appreciate. He meets with me weekly. If I can't come up here, he comes down to my work, or we meet in the middle or whatever. But the dedication that I see to our district is just impressive. And so just a little thank you to Dr. Finch and, of course, to my fellow board members. That's it for me.
All right. Superintendent's report, short. Just to remind you, I've never seen this arrangement, the Student Advisory Council, and I'm meeting this Thursday with that. So that should be interesting. There are representatives from each school coming together and working on a common project around a common good. So I'm excited to see where that goes. The supervisor and I are brand new, so we can't make a mistake, so we're going to just go for it. So we're pretty excited about that, and I know the kids are getting excited too. And I want to continue to promote our Twitter concept here of getting positive information out. And so that's a platform that we're going to work with the students as well, because that's obviously their world as well. So I wanted to mention that, but also I did receive in the mail, and I think you have as well, that we have regional meetings, ASB, Maricopa East and West. Do we go as a group? Do you show up if you want to? You go when you want? Do we divide and conquer, or how does that work? What's the story?
Well, it's a board meeting night, so we're going to all meet here.
Okay. So what about the other night?
Well, that's like 60 miles away, but
Okay. So you're not worried about it? 26th?
They'll remind us.
Okay. So road trip, maybe. Okay.
It would be a nice change to a road
Gilbert
trip.
is a long ways.
Plus to 10. Yeah, Gilbert is a long ways.
That's
I hear road trip.
Halfway to Tucson.
Let's do it.
and it starts at 5 though, so you'd have to leave at 4.
Let's
It
do
was
it.
after my office.
Yeah. If you want to go,
Think about
I will be the transportation if you come here.
Okay.
If,
Nice.
if you're interested.
All right. Fiscal and business services. It's the gym show.
President Fisher, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So we have two reports. We're back into our routine now with the start of the school year. So the two reports that we have for you are the student enrollment report and then the financials for the month of August. The enrollment report was through the 18th day, or August 31st, just happened to be the last day. Again, we do the enrollment reports on Thursdays. And we're happy to report that the reduction of students is just about 69 students, or 0.2%, far less than we were expecting in the budget. It is early in the school year, so we want to continue to monitor that, but that is actually a good sign. We actually have more students than we anticipated we would have for the start of the school year. So I'll pause here to see if there's any questions regarding the enrollment report.
Seeing none?
Hearing none, I'll move right into the financials. And for the August report, we're showing a projected carry forward out of our maintenance and operation, our M&O fund, of just over $207,000. That's an increase over last month, because we didn't give you a report last month, right? That was my attempt at humor. But year over year, we were at about $240,000 in August of 2016. So we're really on par with what we realized a year ago out of the M&O. Again, very early in the year, so very preliminary number at this point in time. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the financial reports.
Seeing none, you get a break tonight. How do you like that? Okay. 5B. Ms. Frank.
Okay, so action item 5B, I move the following resolution. Be it resolved by the governing board of Deer Valley Unified School District Number 97 of Maricopa County, Arizona, as follows. Pursuant to ARS 15-539, 1, a statement of charges against certificated teacher Chat Henricks is authorized. 2, notice according to law shall be given to this teacher of the governing board's intention to suspend without pay or dismiss the teacher at the expiration of 10 days from the date of the service of the notice. 3, all other notices, if any, required by law are authorized to be given and are directed to be given to this teacher.
Second.
All those in favor?
We're doing a roll call.
Oh, it is roll call. Ms. Ordway,
Aye.
Ms. O'Brien,
Aye.
Ms. Tweedy,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Aye.
and Ms. Fisher will also vote aye. All right, let's move on to our consent agenda.
I move the governing board accept the, oh. Give me that, okay. So go ahead.
Yep.
Okay, I move the governing board approve the consent agenda with the following exceptions, and I think my notes are on the paper you just passed down, sorry. You were too quick. With the following exceptions, item 4F and item 4L.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Go ahead and move on to 4F.
I move the governing board approve addenda contracts. All addenda contracts pursuant to ARS 15-502.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Second, motion and a second. Is there discussion? Ms. Tweedy.
The last time we approved addendums, I said I was going to vote no on this item until we started the implementation of a policy on addendums that would include bringing them forward before the work's done, evaluating addendums to see if it falls within the realm of somebody's professional responsibility versus that it would be an extra duty, and that we were following the same hiring procedures in terms of if we had a regular position, meaning we would post it to our employees first, and we would hire based on people's credentials, and we would not go outside and give addendums to people that do not work in this district unless we couldn't hire anybody in our district. So my concern is if I go back on my word, because I haven't seen anything brought forward, and now I'm under the impression it's not going to start till January. So that would give us the opportunity to hire all of the Deer Valley Online teachers in December with nothing in place to prevent us from hiring people outside the district without giving it to teachers who work in the district and could use the money. And I'm also concerned, I just don't understand, I've been talking about this for 6 months, why something could not be brought forward and implemented, and even if it had aspects of it that maybe weren't going to be perfect till January, to do nothing to January, just I don't think is acceptable. So I think I'm going to continue with my promise to vote no on all addendums till we bring a policy forward. And if it happens next week, bring me this list next week and I'll approve it. But I'm not going to, I guess I'm just not, I'm not willing to allow this to go on until January because I'm participating in the process.
Okay, any other comments?
Just one comment that at the next board meeting will be the first report on our progress.
What do you mean by a report on progress, though? Because I'm being told it's not going to be implemented till January. I don't want to see what happened with the Deer Valley Online happen again in December.
What's going to happen is in the report, it'll show the AMGs that are in motion, and the process will be laid out. So it'll start soon. What I'm talking about in January would be the automation of it. So to move a system from this direction to another direction just doesn't happen overnight. I hope to under-promise and over-deliver, and we actually start earlier. But you'll be getting the full report at the next board meeting, and it'll make more sense then. But
So
I don't disagree with you.
will it be a preview item at the next board meeting and then an action item at the following board meeting? Is that what I'm understanding? No? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's not an action item. It'll just be, this is the process that we're doing, and then we'll take your feedback if there's any corrections you want to or different angles that you want.
So then when can we anticipate that the process will formally begin?
It's already started a little bit, so we're starting to warn people and that kind of stuff has already happened. So it's the more formalization of the process will be reported on the next board meeting, and then as soon as we can get it automated, IS&T actually has to make the tool to gather all that. So, and Jim knows a little bit about that, but we'll be able to give you a full report at the next board meeting. That's our goal.
Ms. Hordway.
Is there any more information available in addition to what you've been giving us in the Friday updates?
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
Yep. We don't want to get the cart in front of the horse yet, when we want to do it right, so and address all the concerns. So that's why we're taking our time, and we'll have a full report next board meeting.
In the interim, would it be possible for us to get the process in which we do, I think we've already gotten it, but just one more time, on how we do post hire our online teachers?
Sure.
Could we get an update, a refresher on that?
Sure, we can
That would be
include it in
awesome.
our Thursday update.
Thank you.
My only comment, and because I do agree with Ms. Tweedy that we've been saying this for a long time, and I actually feel really bad for Dr. Finch. He's only been here, a very short amount of time, in 2 months. He hasn't had a time to address it. But this issue was brought forward, and it was brought forward to the prior administration and the senior leaders that are currently in the district as well. So it is difficult, but sometimes you do have to take a stand because ultimately we are responsible for the budget. And when we have things come to us after the fact that almost are not really an option, it's essentially like the legislature saying, here's your money, and there it went, bye. And that's just very difficult for board members to swallow, or at least for me to swallow. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
I'm going to abstain. No, you know what? That's just a chicken way out. I have gone through these addendas, and I have looked, and I've got to tell you this: I cannot vote to postpone sports. I really just can't. We want it. We want our kids. We want our enrollment. And you get them in, and you keep them in by engaging them and keeping them happy and keeping them productive. And sports and student activities does that. So, as difficult as it is for me to vote for this, because it isn't after the fact, cannot do that to our kids. So I will vote. I will vote for it. So that's an aye. Let's go ahead and move on to
Okay.
the next one.
All right. So item L. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the staff travel in the attached listing.
Second.
All right. I am the one that pulled this off, so I guess I will take a swallow and take a stab at it.
And then I also have a few questions when you're
Okay.
finished.
Part of my concern, part of the reason that I really pushed to get student travel, and I don't know if the board's interested in having my notes or not. I have them if they want to reference what I'm talking about. It's up to the board if they care to look at them or not. Part of the reason I really pushed to get addenda or student or employee travel on here is because every year during the budget we sit here and we sit across from teachers who talk about their inability to feed their children, their inability to buy gifts and to care for their kids because we're not paying them enough. And to that end, it's really important that we are fiscally responsible in all areas. And when I saw this addenda or this travel, some of it is just perfectly reasonable. It's wonderful things for our employees to do. So, I went through the area, and I don't know if we can break it apart and vote for some parts or vote for the whole thing. We can, as a board, if anybody wants to make motions and change things as we after we discuss. That's at the discretion of the board. But I look at these PLCs going to San Diego. That is to the tune of $34,000. A $34,000 trip. And so I thought, okay, well, I do PLCs every Wednesday in the district I work for, and once a month we have a district-wide PLC. We shut down. We have, there is such a value to them. However, this identical trip will be in Phoenix in February with no travel to the tune of $12,000. That would be a saving of $21,000. I'm rounding slightly above that. Or we can actually have someone come in-house. The range of having someone come in-house is from $10,000 to $15,000. So that would be a savings of anywhere from $19,000 to $24,000. That's a para. That's almost a teacher. That's that's one I just could not manage to stomach. And then I come down to grants. Being in finance, grants is very important. It is highly important. But we hired a grants manager at a very high level. And now suddenly we're going to say that we also need our continuous improvement brand new director who hasn't learned that job yet because they're so new, to learn grants as well. I think that we're doing double the cost, and if it were the case that we were going to hire 2 individuals into grants, then we should have hired 2 individuals into grants. We hired one, and we hired a different one into continuous improvement, and I just cannot see spending double the funds for what I would consider inappropriate training. Ms. Frank and then Ms. Ordway.
So I have a few questions. When you report out the projected cost, what is included, specifically what is included in that projected cost? So, for example, there's the first one on the list, the projected cost is $1,051. Specifically, what is included in that?
Do you want to ask all the questions and then they answer, or do you want them to answer as they come?
I think answer as they come,
Okay.
if that's
Jean, this would be a good
acceptable.
time to bring Jean up, and she could fill us in. Jean Copen,
She's not
and
really
maybe
cute.
Dr. Miller too.
So when you report the projected cost to the board, I just want to make sure I understand what that includes.
President Fisher, Governing Board, in the projected cost, it would include all travel expenses, which could include either mileage if you're driving, airlines if you're flying, hotel expenses, registration costs, food reimbursement, and then any ground travel when you arrive.
Okay, that's fairly standard. Is staff time included in the projected cost? And the reason I ask that is if we have staff members traveling to a conference, we're paying them to be at the conference, which means that the work that they would normally do back in their office is not being done. And so although staff time isn't a direct cost in the way that the travel and the other things that you mentioned is, I do think it's something we need to consider as we're looking at travel. So I think, I guess you've probably answered my question. Staff time is not included in the direct in the projected cost.
President Fisher, Governing Board, no, in that estimate that you're looking at, it is not. So
Strictly
I'm
travel
assuming you're meaning like a
accommodations.
substitute if they're a teacher, those kinds of costs. Is that what you're
Right. So it does not include, so for example, there is our requests for quite a few teachers from one high school, I think 16. The cost here, I would assume, by looking at the cost, does not include the cost of the sub that will be required for the classrooms that teacher will not be in. Is that
President
correct?
Fisher, Mrs. Frank, yes, that's correct. So that does not show the sub cost to cover those teachers. That is basically coming off of the form that you approve when the travel's submitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, you know, this is a new process for us. This is something that has not come to the board before. So it's a change, and change is hard. It can be uncomfortable. But I do think it's important, especially when we have teachers traveling, that we consider the cost of their substitute and the time that they will spend out of the classroom, not with the students. So where does the funding for the sub come from? Does it come from that school's sub-allocation fund? I know they get an allocation at the beginning of the year. Is it coming from that allocation fund, or is there another fund that it might come from?
Maybe Dr. Miller can fill us in.
Yeah. And I know you were a familiar face on that sub-rotation committee a few years ago.
And you can
worked on
answer
that
some
together.
of Ms. Fisher's questions too, about the schedule and the timing and that kind of stuff.
Yes, President Fisher, Superintendent Finch, and Mrs. Frank, the sub money that you just questioned or asked would be from CIP or from REO, the REO dual money that we get, but it would not be from the sub allocation money.
So you would not find yourself in a situation during flu season where teachers
Correct.
are now...
Right, that's separate.
Right, okay,
That'd
so it is coming from monies that are collected from the dual enrollment classes?
Correct.
Okay.
Or if it supports from our CIP, then we could use for the subs for that.
Okay. My recollection is it's what, around $95 a day?
Yes, give or take.
And how many days will teachers be out of the classroom for this particular conference?
That Monday we have off on the 9th, and then it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and they're I think they travel back on Thursday, if I'm correct.
So 3 days.
It'd be 3 days.
Somewhere in the neighborhood, times 16 teachers, of around $4,000.
Correct.
$4,500
Correct.
for the subs. Okay. In terms of some of the other travel, the funding sources were mentioned as, for example, CIA science budget, CIA social studies budget. So, Dr. Miller, you're off the hook as far as I'm concerned. So, where do those budgets come from? Is that money coming from M&O? Is it coming from Fund 13?
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, I'm going to take a stab at that. I didn't enter this, but I'm going to assume this came from the CIA, the M&O allocation to the curriculum instruction and assessment budget.
Is any of that money tied to Fund 13? I know that there is professional development money that comes from Fund 13.
You are correct. There are dollars assigned for professional development in Fund 13. I would have expected, these are being self-reported while we're building a tool to automate this system. So this, I would have expected that this would have been self-reported as coming from the academic services budget, which is our terminology for Fund 13 or any of the other funds that make up that academic services budget. So I believe this is from the CIA M&O allocation.
Okay, so I realize we're building the airplane as we're flying it here, so I appreciate your answering my questions. Should I go on to my concerns, or want to just go through everyone else's questions? Okay.
I was just wondering if we should let Dr. Miller answer Kim's question.
Sure.
About the timing and the reason why you wanted to do PLCs, et cetera.
Yes. President Fisher, Superintendent Finch. The reason, and the rest of the board members, the reason for the timing is for the last 5 years, they're called PLCs. At O'Connor, we call them LLTs, level learning teams. And over the last 5 years, that's been our focus. And we've kind of built that learning from the ground up. And then the last couple years, we've kind of made it our focus with two other things, with Tech Rich, along with our assessment, with that guaranteed and viable curriculum. You can call it your hedgehog, you can call it being intentional. What has happened this year is it's really we're developing that culture of discipline. If you look, read from good to great, he talks about that. And what happened was last year I sent 10 teachers to the one in February, and we gained some great ground with that. And with that growing, when they came back, and teachers came back and asked, we need some more intentional expert teaching on this. So that's how it grew. And we looked at our data, we looked at the gaps that we had and our teachers' needs, And we truly felt, as we looked at all the options that were given to us, that February would be too late, that we needed to do that in October to get the bang for our buck. And with it being aligned to our district strategic plan, to our own CIT, my admin team, my leadership team felt it was the right time to do that. So we've been intentional with putting, I guess, having that laser-like focus on building those LLTs. So that's the reason we chose. We looked, and it was the most cost-effective and the closest to go to San Diego rather than Texas or some other places that they had. So that was the reason behind that.
Intentional would not be double the cost. Intentional, I mean, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but in February it would be $12,000, but to have a dedicated professional to your PLC here at a maximum would be $15,000. I know that the person that we hired in Phoenix Union is $12,000 and has trained all 16 of our schools, as well as the district office and leaders and whatnot. I find it very difficult to face a teacher and say, you know, I know you have a class size of whatever it's exploded to at this point, or I understand that you don't have a paraprofessional or you don't have, but we're going to take a trip to San Diego versus bringing someone here. Intentional to me is not just an intentional focus on what the work we're doing, but it's also being intentionally responsible with with our dollars. And I value my PLCs. I value, especially I sit in with science. You know, once or twice a month I have to be in a classroom with teachers, and I tell you each time I grow a new respect for teachers, and I gain just to see the work they do. So it is a beautiful thing if done right, but it can be done right at a reasonable cost. And granted, the beach is beautiful in San Diego, but that to me is that's a July vacation spot, not a PLC learning spot. That's just my opinion.
President Fisher and Superintendent Finch, one thing I wanted to add was we are still planning to send some in February, but at a school our size, to have 27 or 34 teachers gone all at once, that's puts a strain on that sub. So that is again why we've tried to accommodate and split that up so we get that quicker, and we couldn't do it all at once. So, but I do understand what you're saying. I just wanted to add that in there.
Does anyone else have questions?
I go ahead, Darcy. Well, we
And I have some.
to me, the rationale that a campus level administrator has is explained to the need comes from different people at a campus. So they explain this need and what they expect the exit outcome to be. So they look at what they're doing. It then goes to the supervisor. The supervisor says, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Not that it's not good blah, blah, blahs, but they go through that rationale again in their professional expert opinions working within their campuses. It then goes up the chain, and I'm guessing that Dr. Galligan's office looks at it after Dr. McNeil looks at it, and they try to project what this exit outcome is going to be. So then it rolls up to us, and perhaps what we need to satisfy, to make sure that we are spending the money in a prudent way, is maybe we need to come up with questions that you're going to put on a form that could then be answered in addition to all the other questions that are asked. So when we have these meetings, these people can be prepared with that, and we can start understanding, and they can start getting what we're asking for and what we're looking for. Because whether or not $24,000 would pay a para, it wouldn't pay a para out of a campus's budget. But yes, that is $24,000. $15,000, we could get a PLC person maybe for 2 schools to look at, but you're still taking that many teachers out of the classroom at the same time. So I don't think that we're looking at we're just going down the road a different way. I think we all want to make sure everyone is learning and getting better. We want to make sure that we're doing it in an efficient way. But I think possibly we have to have those questions answered, and then it's not we just get symbiotic when we're doing this. Because the last thing I want our questions to do is prevent somebody from asking to go on a travel trip that is going to change the district. I mean, because there's always that trip. So I want to make sure that we're doing this in a professional way, and we're not. It's not a got you. It's I want to understand what you're talking about. So maybe we could do that.
I would absolutely agree with you, Ms. Ordway, which is why I did express these numbers with the full backup supporting documentation of the additional potential options and the concerns, as well as the hiring history and whatnot over the last 2 weeks to Dr. Finch. So this was not a gotcha moment. This really was it was brought forward in advance. But and I would agree that any of us board members at all times that we're going to bring something that we want to question should do that, because board meetings should never be a gotcha. We're a team. Even if we disagree, we have to give that opportunity to our employees. Ms.
Weedy.
Who else? Okay, Ms. Frank.
I have another question. Do we know what was spent on out-of-state travel last year? I think that number was given at a previous board meeting.
President Fisher, Ms. Frank, I wouldn't be able to break it down by out-of-state or out-of-county because we did not have that level of detail.
Okay, but I think you gave us a ballpark figure.
We did provide what the total travel budget was.
I have that, Mr. Miglerino. Jenny, it was $789,629.58. That's how much we spent on travel last year.
Okay.
And I
It was
believe
almost $1 million.
So that's about $750,000.
I believe that was all funds, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
So I just have a few thoughts that I want to share, and I would agree with Mrs. Ordway. It's certainly not my desire to put someone on the spot to make them feel like it's a gotcha. As I said before, this is a brand new process, and we're sort of building the airplane as we're flying it. It can be some uncomfortable conversations, I think, for everybody, but we do need to work through this process, which I think in the end will put the district in a better place. So here's a couple of my thoughts, and I did share some of them with Dr. Finch in advance. And I would echo Ms. Fisher's concern that all of the staff travel has been lumped into one item, which does make it that all or nothing vote. So we're looking at grant-funded travel requested by a specific school versus the curriculum specialists and various things. I did request that we look at a PD plan that would encompass travel for the year. So to ensure that travel requests are being prioritized, that we can be assured we're spending the money wisely, the amount's reasonable, and there's a clear and direct benefit to students. And again, when I added up all of those requests, I came to roughly the same amount that Ms. Fisher did. We're looking at anywhere around $67,000, which doesn't even include the money that was approved at our previous meeting to send administrators to the Mid-States Benchmarking Consortium. And this is just the beginning of the year. So, you know, I understand the policy's changed, and so we need to build a new process. But the reality is this: we're maxed out on our override, and it barely passed. We have our bond. We're using that money. We've already allocated all of the Prop 123 money, and our student enrollment, even though the news was better than we had expected, our student enrollment has declined. So I asked for a travel reduction plan, and I received these requests for this large amount of money in one meeting. And what I as a board member need to see, And this, this isn't a criticism of any one particular person, so please, no one should take it that way. I need to see that travel's been prioritized. I know that there's some conferences that people go to year after year, and those conferences aren't a surprise. Like the Arizona Science Teachers Association conference, they have it every year. They have it the same time every year, and I know every year I'm going to go to that. So looking at those things that you will want to go to, and then looking at what are the most important things for us to go to, and then what is the impact on student achievement and or enrollment? Is the impact of spending this amount of money, large amount of money on travel, are we getting a bigger bang for our buck than, say, lowering class sizes or providing an AP for some of our schools that are maybe 15, 20 students away? And I realize that not all of the funding sources for the travel could be used for all of those things, but it is something we need to look at. I've also heard that it's being said that the board is micromanaging. Well, I don't want to micromanage anyone, but I am responsible to the constituents of this district to ensure how the money's being spent. Personally, I would like to table this item and request that we have a travel budget discussion be placed on a future meeting agenda. If we need to call an additional meeting to establish a travel budget, I'd be open to that. I don't want to stop district business from happening, but my constituents have made it quite clear they expect me to be fiscally responsible. And I think by putting this on a public agenda, which it's never been before, again, it's uncomfortable. But in the long run, it's going to be better for us because our district will see that we are making a commitment to transparency and accountability. And we have to do that because there's going to be another override we're going to want to pass at some point in the future. And we barely passed the last two. Barely, and that concerns me. So I guess I've probably given you way more than 2 cents worth, but
to that point, if the board so chooses, I would support that. However, I would like to note that there is one travel that is immediate, which is for our counselors. So if we are going to postpone the item, and it is one that is very fiscally responsible, it is paid through various grants. And it is tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? Or is that today? That's tomorrow. Yes.
Also, if you postpone it, you'll drive up the cost as well for purchasing, which has already happened from a previous board meeting. And actually, one teacher who was going to win an award and speak at a state or at a national conference just pulled his paperwork because we didn't have enough time to get it in front of you first. So the dominoes are following in this kind of system. So there are unintended consequences that happen by like you said, changing the wings on the airplane.
Ms. Tweedy.
And I guess I look at this different, and I don't want to hear the details of every conference everybody goes on. I don't want to read the rationale. I think that falls under management. But the part that falls under governance is how much we spend on travel each year. And $789,629 is ridiculous. And that's what was spent in 15-16. And I think we could make an argument that it didn't increase enrollment if we look at our enrollment report. And I think we can make an argument that it didn't have a huge impact on student achievement. I mean, our scores aren't, I don't see them as $789,000 better. So I want to know, if I'm approving travel, where this train is headed, because there is no way I am approving this dollar amount. It's ridiculous. I think the people that elected me would be furious. I think the teachers and the classified people who are underpaid are furious about things like this. I think parents that are paying fees are furious about things like this. And so I would actually agree. And I want to establish a dollar amount. When we hit it, don't bring any more travel in front of the board. That's my thoughts, because you guys can, on a managerial decide prioritize them. If you say you want this counselor thing approved tonight, great, but whatever dollar amount we set, then the counselors, whatever's paid on that, whatever was paid on the benchmark consortium, it counts against that travel budget. We hit zero, we're done. Because there's no way I'm approving this much travel.
So, can I say something?
Yes, Ms. Orley.
I don't want to keep, this is going to last forever. However, if a campus decides that they need something, they're not using district M&O money. They may be using their Rio money. They may be using this money. There's so many pots that are sitting at the high school, well, at all the schools, but mostly the high schools have most of the money, that if they so chose, and say it was School Q that has a new principal and an influx of brand new teachers and whatever, and they needed to do a culture something. I don't know whatever. And they chose, with the vote of that campus faculty, that they wanted to spend $15,000 on going to this place. Then how is it that we would prevent them from doing that? Because that would be what that community wants, because the community supports the leadership at the school, their kids are there. So how do we decide that the counselor thing is a good thing to go to? I don't know where it is. I don't remember exactly where the counselor is. But this other one isn't, because it's in San Diego. So if it was in North Dakota, perhaps it might have been okay. And I'm not trying to be flip, but when you say micromanaging, I don't know that it's micromanaging, but we're stepping into areas that are not our expertise.
Not wanting to spend $800,000 on travel should be our expertise. We approve the budget every year.
You have no fact or basis to say that $100,000 was wasted, whereas I don't have a fact to say that it was spent fiscally correct, other than I trust the people that we hire, and I'm sure they could show us that $100,000, it's a big number. But we don't pay, yes, okay, it's 800. So what are we comparing that to? You could be absolutely correct, but we're basing it on the fact that it's a big fat number. Not that it didn't do anything, not that it could do anything. So if we're going to look at the travel, let's look at it in educational, professional development, continuous improvement, align it to what our mission is, instead of just saying the number's too big, cut it off. Sorry, you have independence at your campuses for this, but we're going to tell you what to do for that. I mean, if we're going to make this uniform, then we'll make it uniform, but then we're taking away the ability of our campus leaders to spend money on what they need in their schools.
Well, to that point, I think that's where some of the frustration comes in, with the fact that it's all lumped into all or nothing. I don't, if schools have money from their dual enrollment and they've decided that's how they want to choose, they choose to spend it, that's beneficial for their school, I certainly want them to have that. But I'm faced with a lump sum of travel. And so I don't want to, it's not reasonable to take out every single item and vote on it individually. But again, if maybe part of the process needs to be things that are funded in one way are sort of put in one item. I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer.
I also, Ms. Ordway, my point in this, in noting the counselors, is not that the counselors is more important than the others, it's that it's tomorrow.
Well, no,
please let me finish. That is more my point, is that it's tomorrow. It's
right.
not that it's more important or less important. This is a new process, and I will tell you, when you look at this item on all the other districts that approve it, it is rare it's ever pulled off for anything. Probably the only reason it's pulled off at this point is because it is so new, and we do have to find those, mechanisms with whether or not we are operating purposefully. Are we doing, and those are the things that are going to have to be put in administratively, not by us, but they currently have not been put in. And as we're doing that, we're starting to figure it out. It is our responsibility to question when we see a dollar amount that comes before us, and we know that the same thing is a different, that's our responsibility.
But Kim, what
If-
I said,
please let me finish. But and I understand Ms. Tweedy's point that that is a lot of money, but I also understand your point. We don't know what that is, but we don't know because no one has ever looked. And so we are going to have a year of struggle of looking in, and we are going to have to make sure that we are meeting our mission and our vision and doing what we're supposed to be doing. And that will be a big chunk on Dr. Finch. But that doesn't alleviate our responsibility to look and speak up. And so my point is that I don't want to stop anyone, but I also don't want us to overexpend, because when we get not only our teachers standing before us, but when we get our constituents saying, don't ask me to buy you a screwdriver because you paid $600 for the last one and I bought mine for $6 at the Lowe's. You know, I mean, that's the kind of things that you get. I just had that happen last night, so we do have to act responsibly.
why wouldn't we just bring this back and come up with a travel budget so we don't have to debate it and they can decide what they want to spend with that budget? I mean, if there's 3 people on the board that think we should spend $800,000 in travel, then I guess it will pass that way. It will pass without my vote, and they can explain to the constituents why they think that's a good idea. But I'm just saying, I think we should come back and we should come up with a travel budget. I get outvoted. And then all of these trips get applied to the budget. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with Miss Ordway because I've been teaching for years and I have never voted on my teammates' travel before as a staff. And I'm been a parent in this district for a long time, and I've never really thought that all of the staff should be traveling with the money. I kind of hoped it would make it to my kid's classroom, but I guess that's just me as a parent, and I might have a different view than other people. They might want to see the whole staff travel with the money they give to schools. I don't know. But I'm just saying we need a travel budget, and I think I don't have the time, and I don't want to be rude, but it would be boring to read all these conference descriptions. I don't even want to be involved in it, but I just want to know we're not spending this much money.
Ms. Fisher?
Ms. O'Brien.
Mr. Miglerino, what is our total district budget?
President Fisher, Ms. O'Brien, our total M&O budget is just under $200 million, $199.7 million, roughly.
And
that does not include the federal state grants and some of the other funds that have been mentioned this evening.
And do we have a rough number if you included the other funds that have been mentioned this evening?
It would be in the neighborhood of about $260 million, all inclusive.
Okay. And the $800,000 number roughly that Ms. Tweedy mentioned, it included all the funds. What are those funds? Would that be all local driving? I mean, what are the different funds that comprise that total of $800,000 roughly?
There are a number of funds, probably too lengthy to name.
Okay.
But most of it, I think, were our M&O fund, our federal and state grants, those funds, as well as the funds within our academic services budget. So Fund 13 and some of those other specially identified funds in the academic services budget.
Okay.
I would also like to note, just Ms. O'Brien, just because it's appropriate to what you've asked, some of the funds we would not receive if there wasn't someone traveling. So that does occur quite often. Just throwing that in.
So
Basically.
we would not receive those funds if the people did not travel on those
Correct.
trips.
In other words,
anyway,
they apply for a specific grant or a specific
so it's
training,
essentially
and those funds come for the sole purpose of sending them to a course somewhere.
So essentially a net zero effect to
Correct.
our
So
district. We wouldn't get the funds if we didn't do it, and we wouldn't send that person on that trip and to that professional learning if we hadn't gotten the funds. Thank you.
And that's my concern with that. I just wanted to throw that out, just based
So
on
that
what
would,
you
in
asked.
effect, inflate the $800,000 number.
That is correct.
Okay. Dr. Miller, if you could indulge me, you said that some of your funds are from your CIP funds. Am I not correct in that there is a CIT, which is your continuous improvement team, that evaluates these, evaluates and votes on these, how these funds are spent at your campus level?
President Fisher, Superintendent Finch, and Ms. O'Brien, yes, you are correct.
So your team voted to spend these funds this way?
Correct. When we sent our 10 last February, and it gained some good ground, and we started looking at our data, we started planning on this trip even last spring.
Okay, and the data that you, thank you for that answer, the data you said that you looked at after that February trip, can you tell me what that data is?
With the data that we looked at, it wasn't just right after that February trip, but we looked at our proficiency rates. That is one thing that we looked at to make sure that our students were mastering their essential learnings. So that was the one piece. We also looked at our graduation rates. We had some teachers that, because part of with our PLC in that conference, they learned to have those MTS interventions. And so our graduation rate was very, very good. I think, again, I probably figure it different than some, but we had a total of, with our extended year, I think we had a total of 6 kids that did not graduate, and some of those were students with special needs. So, again, we're making some good end gains with that. The other data that we looked at is just that qualitative data with the teachers' input of saying, this is how we've grown with our LLTs. These are some things that we learned from that conference and that we can apply to our own learning.
And at that conference that they attended in February, there were attendees from all over the country, from different districts and...
Yes, President Fisher, Superintendent Finch, and Mrs. O'Brien. Actually, I think last year, Mrs. Miranda from Mountain Ridge had sent about 10 people from there. I know even in years past, Dr. Anderson had sent some, quite a few of his staff from there. So yes, there were participants from all over the country. I personally, I'm not going in February. I've already gone. I gone about 6 years ago at Deer Valley Middle. So I was not there, but I know when I've gone to that in the past, there were participants from all over the country, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Miller and Mr. Miglerino. My comments on this subject are that we are building a process, building the plane while we're flying it. And I do have concerns about preventing our administrators and staff from making the decisions that they believe that are in the best interests of their community students while we're building our plane. I absolutely agree that we must answer to our constituents that we are being fiscally responsible, especially when we are asking for override and bond money. Given the information I've received this evening regarding the travel that's been asked for and all of the points that you ladies have been brought up, I think it is prudent to move forward with this travel while we continue to build our plane and get the answers that several of my board members are looking to have, the additional information or a set travel budget. I'm not opposed to any of those ideas. I do believe that we have hired excellent administrators, both at the district level and the campus level, and they are closest to knowing what their students need in their community. So I support this while I support moving ahead with finding a process so this does not continue to be a labored discussion at every single meeting. Thank you.
Any other comments?
May I just kind of fill in my perspective? Being new, this is my 19th year as a superintendent, so I've been a superintendent for a bit. I think I've discussed with the board at our retreat and prior, I put a lot of emphasis on my principals, that they are the center of us being successful. And so with great responsibility and comes great authority. So over time, what I do is create this atmosphere of expectation. So I want them to succeed, but I also don't have all day. I want to tell them, hey, this is where we're going, and you need to get on it, get quickly moving forward, because I'm not going to wait 5 years for you to have your score start to grow. So because of this, if you want to call it artificial pressure, principals I hope they are getting this concept that that I want results sooner than later. Therefore, they will. I want them to have the authority, as you were speaking to make those decisions about where we're going and how fast we're going to get there. And if I deny that early on in the discussion of their abilities, then they can come back to me and say, well, I was going in the right direction, but you shot me down, and so I just went with plan B. But the flip side of that is, if they go to this conference, for example, or other training that they say is important, and the results don't come, then we have a different discussion. So that's generally how I lead. I like to empower my principals to make the right decisions, and then I look for results. So I think you have a great administrative team here, and I also agree with everyone has said here. There's a lot of good thoughts there, but it is difficult from my chair to say cut travel. It's just too general. So if the board decided we want to hit X, we can do that, whatever X turns out to be. But as we were flying this airplane, from my perspective, I'm not going to deny, unless it's, doesn't align with our system, doesn't align with their goals, doesn't go through the approval process with the leadership, them the opportunity to grow their staff and move forward. So, but again, the opposite of that is if the results don't come, then they're out of the job.
Can you explain why we're training someone sending someone to a training that's not related to their job?
Well, let me go back to the O'Connor for example, because that's a good example. By Dr. Miller saying, I don't want to wait till February. That we need to move now. I've built momentum, and when you go to these conferences, this one in particular, it's all of the heavy hitters in one shop, not just one. And so and him going there 6 years ago, he probably has a good idea what this is going to look like and how the impact that it will have on his staff. So that's probably what he's thinking. I don't want to take words out of his mouth, but if he's part of the Good to Great model, it's this concept of the flywheel. If you can get it to turn and you can build momentum, a lot of it is timing. And so if he's decided at this point I need a shot of a PLC of 16 more, that it might be able to get the flywheel moving quicker. So that's how I look at it.
And to that point, I understand that brings us back to Ms. Tweedy's point that this is all lumped in, and because this isn't just about Dr. Miller having his PLCs. I still think the cost is exorbitant, but I go to the other things as well. Like I said, we are training our continuous improvement person for grants when we have a highly paid grants person who we're also training. Are we going to send a teacher to be an accountant? Are we going to, where do we draw the line in appropriate for a position? And I understand that this kind of got slipped through, Dr. V leaving, you coming, let's slip and move. And we've had that discussion, and I sent you the full data, but the board can do as it wishes. However, we can, at the end of the day, I have to be able to say I did not just blow X amount or that there was a value to it. And I get that there's potential for increased rates, but there's got to be a reason, not just a because. I just is where I'm at with that.
So Dr. Finch, whose decision was it that they needed to have this training for the grant writing, and what's the value added going to be?
Yeah, it'd be my directors make those calls. It comes up the chain to the directors or the principals.
So could we get the rationale of who made that decision?
Jean could answer that.
Oh, sorry, I don't, sorry. But thank you.
President Fisher, Mrs. Ordway, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to clarify why I need to attend this conference. In July of this year, the ESSA Act was passed. And so what that means for districts is that we are mandated to create what they're calling a consolidated plan. It is a district improvement plan that will be filed under our grants management, but it covers our entire district. Traditionally, we've thought about this as in the world of Title I, and our 14 schools now represent about a third of our district, and yes, they have specific requirements. But the ESSA Act is requiring districts to look at it comprehensively because we have federal funds flowing through our district at all levels. It's not just Title I. Special education, our preschools, we have homeless children throughout our district. Any of those grants would apply to the whole district. So therefore, the improvement plan that I will write for the district needs to follow the consolidated rules. This is brand new. Our state wrote a plan that we have to follow, then revised our plan. These gentlemen are attorneys and presented briefly at an ADE conference, but not the full conference. And so ADE then came out with recommendations that if districts had the opportunity, this is where you get it from the source. And I feel that it's important that I hear that firsthand so that all the decisions that I'm making in our department are in line with the ESSA Act. I don't want to cause any inefficiencies in our system by requiring title schools, to do more. But on top of, I'd rather align our whole district to what this consolidated plan is going to look like. And again, each title school submits their own plan that basically is a record of how they're going to spend their federal dollars. But the consolidated district plan is going to cover all 38 schools. And so there's an overlap. My predecessor, Mrs. Paul, and the former grants manager, Mr. Ettenborough, had the foresight to start collaborating last year, which was very fortunate for me. Although they were trying to collaborate while the state and our nation was figuring this out. So these are very new, kind of hot off the press guidelines. And so this conference is actually being paid for out of Title I funds, so it is not our district M&O for this particular trip.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. Uh, 5A.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the human resources changes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We already did
D we
the,
have done.
C.
I move that the governing board approve the superintendent's 2017-18 performance pay goals.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Finch, is there any changes? Everything we're all good with? We already met on this.
Good to go.
Any questions? Nope.
I think
All
we
those-
discussed about meeting quarterly or every other month or something like that. We had a plan on that, so, yep.
Oh, I thought we thought every day. No, I'm kidding. Kidding.
Daily, we're all to
Okay.
call him by
No
by
charge.
6 a.m.
Yeah. Prefer 5.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting norms.
Aye.
Go ahead and,
I move that the governing board review, discuss, and adopt the meeting norms established for board meetings.
okay.
Good.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Ordway, second. We, when we met in February, the board discussed the importance of us having meeting norms. That included just reminding each other when we had when we needed help or helping each other, rules with our cell phones. And we, since then, have had them, Miss Redding has had them in the lobby. But we do believe that, or many of us felt, I believe all of us felt, that it was important that the public know that we are working together and we're working to have productive meetings. So again, when we met at our last board retreat, we did review the meeting norms. We didn't change them at all, but we wanted to officially adopt them so that the public knows that we're committed to having functional meetings. Does anybody want to address anything specific on our norms, or? No? Okay. What we will be doing is eventually we will be putting together, it will be a visual that will be here in the boardroom, and so the public can see what our norms are. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
That is a preview item.
It's a preview item. Okay. Are we going to put it up, Kim? Okay. Got it? Okay. This is our preview item. Again, this is Jim Font, somewhat. At our board retreat, we also reviewed our board ethics. We wanted to make them ours. We wanted to make them specific to this board, and then we wanted to be sure that we share them with the public. So we did take our existing policy and we made a few changes. I just went off the notes and I made the changes based on what I had read. Ms. Redding, which is the one that we weren't, we both listened to it.
President Fisher, Superintendent Finch, it is the fourth bullet where was some discussion about the wording on there, and then there was discussion about putting all stakeholders, and we weren't quite sure where we ended up
Our
with that.
conversation went back and forth in our board retreat. So we made the change here. If the board says, hey, no, we decided we weren't going to make that change, we're good with it. If it said we were, because the board went back and forth into the discussion. So when we were putting the changes together, both Ms. Redding and I listened and we're like, I think we said yes, I think we said no, but there was a lot of discussion. So if the board could weigh in on good with these changes, not, or.
I thought the discussion ended up in leaving the students, staff, and all elements of the community so that we had, I think we said community members, so that we had the groups delineated, especially the students and staff. That was what I thought we ended with, but
Yeah, I thought we ended up with changing the word element to members.
to all community members instead of elements of the community to said
okay.
and all community members. But
I think that's kind of in line with what I heard. Ms. Frank?
I'm fine with that wording.
Okay.
if we could change it back.
Ms.
to that.
Tweedy? Okay. So if you could go ahead and just make that change, then we bring it back to the second reading. Did we get the other ones correct? The other ones were real clear in our discussion. But if there's any desire to change the others.
None for me.
No new English lesson?
No.
On this one? Okay. So that one change, and then we'll bring it back for a second read.
Can we just adopt it right now, just to save some spot on the agenda for others? I say adopt it with that change, or do we have?
No, because we put into policy that it needs to be done in a specific way. So we'll have to bring it back as a second read and adoption. But it can be as simple
They'll go
as
quickly.
It can be as simple as,
Doesn't
no
sound
changes
like-
and vote. Okay?
Mm.
Sorry. Just trying to get through board docs to get the other thing up. Okay, discussion item. One of the things we noted back in May, I want to believe, when we received our communication, we received our survey
And it was noted that there is a lack of communication between the board and our constituents. In fact, we had the paper take note of it, and we all took note that because we want our constituents to know what it is we do, we want their input, we want their feedback. At the time, I had said that we really needed to push into having a communication plan, and I was so pleased that my fellow board members rallied around the idea of having a solid communication plan. So when we did meet in our last retreat, we did go through, we threw out a puddle of ideas. I did re-listen to the meeting. It's really weird to listen to a meeting that you're a participant in, because you realize how different you sound. It's a little strange. But I did compile it into this format. And I think I got all of our elements correct. So if the board wants to make any adjustments. Now, we did agree that we weren't going to adopt the communication plan so that it could be fluid, so that we could add or remove elements to meet the needs of our constituents. So if the board could review and if they want to move anything or add anything, the first section are the deliverables and the things that we agreed to, that I could clearly find that we agreed to in my notes and in the meeting.
Dr. Finch, do you know when we would be getting our list of which campuses we were going to each visit and that stuff?
End of the week.
Oh, okay. All right, that's my only question.
Now, we did have an email that we talked about just drawing names. Is that something that the board wants to do? We talked about, because we wanted it to be, getting out of our comfort zone. We don't want to always go to, I always go to Deer Valley because 3 of my kids have gone to Deer Valley. They graduated. 2 of them graduated, one's there. And there was an email at some point that we talked about drawing names, getting a random school. Did we want to do something like that? Do we want to be assigned? What is it we would like to do?
For me, it doesn't matter because I go to all of them, so I don't have a comfort zone other than all of them. So whatever.
Well, this is specifically for an assigned purpose.
Right.
I
So
mean,
what
we
I'm saying is I go
we
with
all
the-
go to things to all of them.
But
I
when-
would have something specific. So
Okay, I
I
won't
remember
finish.
from the retreat, you had this same discussion, and that's why you gave it to me.
I think
assigning
what
them?
I think what I wanted to make sure of, at least what was important to me, and I don't think necessarily by randomly drawing that this would happen,
Yeah.
is that we each got a high school, we each got a middle
Correct.
school, we each got a school in
Right.
different regions. So
Yep.
one person didn't visit all the schools, and we could all get all over the district.
Yep, that you wanted it spread out, so there's a little variety.
So
Kim and
more
I
of
will
a
work on it.
representative sampling.
Yes.
okay, so we're gonna just do assigned schools.
Happy to go wherever you send me.
Okay.
Okay,
Just send
We'll
the
find
list.
out on Friday.
all right.
If you want to trade,
No,
probably draft picks
no
and
Yeah,
trading.
cash.
when you give
No
lollipops
trading.
out to kids, they don't get to pick the flavor.
You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit.
Nice. Sounds like broccoli.
Huh. Okay, now on the planned items for, that still needed logistics. The top section is what we had agreed, and I think we were all under the agreement of how we were gonna do them. Does anybody have any ideas or specifics they want to move forward on those items in the logistics section? Do we want to start when do we want to start the newsletter? What's that gonna look like?
If I could make a suggestion, Mrs. Fisher, when I know we're getting to a point where we'll be looking at a different board meeting setup potentially, if this maybe could be one of our discussion items, so we would have a little bit more time to talk about it at that point and maybe think about it.
that's an excellent
ahead- ahead
suggestion.
it.
I would just like to just have you guys think about something that I noticed before. I did like what Kim sent us on the Kim Redding. There's 2 Kims up here on the board highlights. My only thing that I would want to change with that, so I would just like to get you guys thinking about it, is it listed different items that happened at the board meeting and then it said the motion passed. I would prefer it to have our names and how we voted, because if something passes, that's fine. I'm not going to undermine you. But if something passes that I really don't believe in, I don't want it going out just it passed so people think I may have voted for it. I get that I'll live with things that I didn't vote for and I'll accept it, but I'm not going to go out into the community like I voted for it. I know some of my votes are controversial and I'm prepared to take whatever consequences I have for them, but I don't want to take consequences for votes I didn't make.
So are we going to have a roll call vote for every vote, essentially? Or
I think
not that we
need-
would have it in a roll call manner like we did for the earlier vote, but that it would be necessary for Mrs. Redding to actually note who voted how.
That's
Just put our names and put yay or nay
That's
next to
actually,
it.
that's actually pretty common, that suggestion. But what may happen in the future, she may have to stop you. Okay, who voted no on that? So just be
Sure.
ready for that.
I think that's okay. I don't have a problem.
She might have to stop the meeting and ask again, who voted on what,
Bec-
if it's not unanimous.
Because, right, it might be
She
hard
wants
to
to get it
tell from the
correct.
tape whose voice is
Correct.
saying yes or nay, yay or nay.
Yeah, we can do that.
No,
Well,
I don't have
and-
a problem with that.
And I do think your idea to bring it back, so once we start the new sessions, I think that would be a good idea, just to bring it back and then work on the logistics from there.
Yeah, and make sure that Mrs. Allred is with us to help us out with
Yes.
some of those questions. I'm sure that was part of the reason we didn't tackle some of the issues at the board retreat.
Correct.
We wanted to have the expert in the room.
Okay. Is there any other comments, anything anyone wants to add to this, so when we do bring it back to the next session?
If we see anything else, could we, at a later date, can we just email
I would
Dr.
say
Finch?
I would
and-
email Dr. Finch,
Okay,
yeah. and
perfect.
then
Thank you.
Just let me know and we can add it in. Did I send you the live file or did I send you a PDF? Okay, so they can just be added. All right. Board meeting schedule. Again, this actually stemmed from a lot of different things, and this for the public anyways. We've played around for a long time, multiple board members, both prior and current board, that we want more discussion, we want to have more meaningful conversations, and what does that look like in a meeting? We did discuss it in February, and Dr. Weitenheimer did make a good suggestion, which was that we wait for our new superintendent so that we are aligning with him as well. And so we did. We waited, and in this last study session, or the last board retreat, we went over multiple options that Dr. Finch had provided to us, and we kind of picked what we think is going to be a good balance. Now it's of course fluid, and we know people are used to certain things. So do you want me to go over it, or you want to take it? So we'll let Dr. Finch go ahead and go over that one with us.
If I remember right, it's similar to the Gilbert model. We looked at a lot of our neighbors and went from there. The two things are going to happen, I think, that are most important. One is organizing our celebrations, our honor, our awards like we had tonight, those kinds of things. We're going to move those forward to 6:30. It's from 6:30 to 7. We'll always have some award, some presentation, some celebration of some kind in that time frame. And then at 7, we'll have a normal, what we had tonight, a normal board meeting, and that would be our first Tuesday of the month, or our second Tuesday of the month, our first normal meeting that we normally have. The second one is where the biggest change will happen, and that is, again, we would start with our celebrations and awards and those kinds of things, again, projecting to the community all the neat things that are happening here. A designated time, 6:30 to 7. The second meeting will be starting at 7, but will be a consent agenda-driven meeting, short, and policies and that kind of stuff will be absent from that. And the rest of the meeting, again, we can pull out at any time, pull out parts that we want to discuss if we have problems, like we always do. We can always pull it out if we want and talk about it. But in general, we're trying to shorten that second meeting and then spend the rest of the time hopefully topic-driven, as Ms. O'Brien just brought up an example. That would be a perfect example. We would mark November, if we're planning on starting in November, that maybe the first one would be about our communication plan and how to make it real. That would be a great opportunity to hear from Ms. Allreed on what her thoughts are and what she's thinking about what we should be doing. And so it's not Ms. Allreed because everybody reads, right? We all read? No. We already read. We all read. So anyway, but I think I never forgot that joke when she said it, so that's where I came back. Good job. But the second meeting is going to be more collaboration, more back and forth with my admin team, the executive council, principals. Maybe they would be part of it. So that's the general gist. I think a part of it is also our general marketing plan. That and if we don't have specific awards that we want to present, that half hour before could be a class that comes and sings, could be choir, could be a high school choir, could be band, could be anything that we want to see. Maybe the Mandarin kids come sing Happy Birthday in Chinese. So that's the purpose, is to get more kids in front of us. So then that makes people leave. Yes, close it out. But any questions or thoughts? And I applaud the board to think out of the box. This is new. This addresses some of our concerns that we've had as a group, to have more dialogue, more interaction, more debate, and I think it will be a positive step in a positive direction. I think it's a good move.
I did have one. Well, there's a couple of thoughts, because just as this is developed and especially putting the agenda together for this week specifically. There's a couple things that I want to say, not just for the board, but for anyone who's in our audience or watching via the web, is that Ms. Allred is going to get that communication out so that our constituents and our public is aware. And we, as a district, we always strive to do what's best for everyone, for our children and their families and our employees. And because Deer Valley has always been so dedicated to their community, I mean, they do go above and beyond what the law requires. I know Ms. Redding is and her predecessors are very diligent to try and get that board packet out and posted to the public on Friday. Now there will be times as we go into this new schedule that events that are beyond our control will come up, and while we intend on putting other meetings later, or our executive sessions, things like that, there will be times that we have to have them before. And there will be times that Ms. Redding will not be able to post the agenda before Monday. The law requires that we post 24 hours ahead of time. And while we really appreciate that she seeks to get it out on Friday so that people have it, they can review it, they can see it, and we do plan on keeping that process. And we will still get it, of course, to the board as soon as possible. But when there's additional items that cannot be posted prior to Monday because we don't have enough information, we may have to hold some of those because that did come up recently. I just want everyone to know that if it's not there on Friday for some reason, it will be there on Monday. There is a business reasons that we would not post it, and I just don't want you to think that we're not caring of your ability to see it ahead of time, but that is the reason. Any other questions or comments?
I have a clarifying question.
Yes, Ms. O'Brien.
The new structure, so the regular or the board meeting, either Tuesday, will not officially start until 7 o'clock. Is that my understanding from this? So if we start awards or whatever, our presentation at 6:30, if that ends at 6:45, we'll still wait until 7 o'clock to officially start.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, so the official meetings is what we had decided
same.
would be at 7. It's just the awards would be moved to
Is there
to
any way we
6:30.
could just say immediately following the
Well,
award?
for our
or-
audience that would be watching online, then that might throw them a curve.
And
So-
I guess as a follow-up on that, is there a reason we're not just bumping the start time up to 6:30?
We want to designate the 6:30 to 7 as a celebration.
Our students.
Yeah, celebration of our students' hour, our half-hour awards, etc. So you could, we want to send the message that it's important, and we want to send the message that it'll be consistent. And so I think that's the reason why we went with 6:30 for awards and presentations, and then 7 for the business meeting. Therefore, if somebody came online, they know they could start at 7 and get the information live. Because if we, for example, let's say we don't have enough awards and we're done at 6:35, we start the meeting immediately following, our meeting could be over before the normal person online say, hey, well, you know, just
Not
saying, thinking
likely.
positive.
Not likely.
Jim, can you give me an over and under on that?
Mercy. Doug,
He's an over.
Dr.
Not by
Finch,
much, though.
have you
I
been
do-
to our meetings?
I've only been here 2 months. I'm positive. I'm thinking
I
positive.
do appreciate your optimism, Dr. Finch, and I do look forward to those days. I guess that's how we have been operating with a 7 o'clock start time, and so I just was not understanding why we weren't just bumping up at 6:30 for everything and allowing us to
Yeah.
move forward.
I think we had the discussion. It was about getting out of work and getting here in time.
I think
I think Ms. Frank
that was
mentioned
the
that.
discussion,
Yep.
or part of it.
We'll try it and we can change it.
Curious, nope. I just
We can-
was
Let's
clarifying.
run it for a
point.
while and see if it works, and if we need to change it, we can.
And then I think we had talked about starting this, was it November, December?
November. October, we only have one meeting, and then December, one meeting,
that
so
was my
November was the
recollection.
pilot.
Do we
All
have
right, any other questions?
the public
concerns?
comments?
We do, so if you can go ahead and.
I will be happy to
Let me
read.
go ahead and,
ahead.
we have, I slaughter this name every time. E.J. Jamsgard? Yeah. I always mess up your last name.
All
If you
right.
could go ahead and
Prepare to be admonished. The board invites public comment on the district's business in general and on any agenda item in specific. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing name, address, and topic and hand it to the board secretary prior to the president calling the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments in no more than 3 minutes. If necessary, to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda.
James Gard, and this is my 8th year as a counselor at Deer Valley Middle School, which makes me the longest serving certified employee on my campus, and this year will mean I will have worked for 5 different principals during that time. In all my years as a congressional staffer in the United States Senate, in all my years as an international businesswoman, and in all my years of volunteering for large nonprofits, I was treated as a professional, respected for the value that I contributed to the organization. Then I followed my God-given calling and turned 25 years of youth volunteering into my daily job when I obtained my master's in counseling to become a school counselor, and serving in a school not much different than my childhood. I was an at-risk child who simply wants to pay it forward. My success is attributed to God, my parents, and my education. Yet sadly, for the first time in my life, I have experienced what it is like to be at the whim of whoever and told this is just how education is. So again this year, I stand before you and plead with the board to consider adopting the American School Counselor Association counseling model, so that my peers, regardless of their assigned school, and myself are treated as the professionals we are. My campus would not be able to educate any child without our counselors, nurse, psychologists, and other certified professionals, and yet we continue to be devalued not only financially, but in our daily duties. As always, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, that was our only public comment. Future dates are posted. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.